Hey polish fans, welcome to another video here at Wild Moon Lacquer, and today we are going to start video number 2 of my reds and burgundies comparisons. I am starting the long-awaited task of organizing my nail polish. This is from video number 1. If you haven't seen that already, make sure to go check that out for the first video of my Destash process and comparisons. So today we're going to continue the process. I got about halfway through my burgundies and reds. I still have quite a few to do side-by-side comparisons of, and the first two that we're going to go ahead and talk about are these two here. The first one is by Colors by Leroux. That is called Love Actually, and we're going to see how that compares to this lily pad lacquer called the 12th Doctor. And they do seem somewhat comparable to each other. They are both dark red holographics, and I'm curious to see how they will compare to each other once I actually get them swatched on the nail. This is a beautiful burgundy color, almost ever so slightly orange leaning, kind of like a terracotta undertone to it, which is really pretty. And I can see those holographic bits in there, definitely coming across almost like an aurora shimmer, which is really pretty. So let's go ahead and see how the lily pad lacquer compares. Oh, more berry toned. Didn't quite get enough polish on my brush there. So interesting, that is more berry. So far those two are definitely much more different than I thought they would be. I figured there would be some differences, but I thought that tonally they would be much more similar than they are. Very interesting, and that is why we do this. I think the saying goes, never judge a polish by its bottle. That's why. So here's coat number 2 of the Colors by Leroux. Still just such a beautiful color. This is impressing me actually. I really like that. It's sort of this terracotta wine with that beautiful holographic shimmer to it, which is not coming across at all on camera. The holographic so far is fairly subtle though, so I don't think you're going to get any of that linear holographic rainbow on the nail, but it is stunning, and I'm sure in other lightings it might come across a bit more prominently. Here's coat number 2 of the lily pad lacquer. Definitely continuing with that sort of vampy berry color. Absolutely beautiful. I think on camera they are coming across a little bit more similar than they are in person. In person, for sure, the Colors by Leroux, which is there on the left, has, like I mentioned before, an ever so slightly like terracotta rust lean to it. It's definitely not orange, it's most definitely a burgundy, but there's that little bit of warmth to it that leans in that direction, which is really beautiful. And the one by Lily Pad Lacquer is definitely this beautiful wine color. Absolutely gorgeous. We're going to go ahead and do a third coat of these and see how they layer up. Okay, there we go. That's more of how they're looking in person. I feel on camera they're coming across a bit more accurately this round. I think I am losing my daylight. I might have to turn on my overhead. Just look at that color though. They're very, very different actually. Neither really have that linear holographic if that's what you're looking for, but they're beautiful. Let me go ahead and see if that light change makes a difference. That might make a bit of a difference. And as you can see, the Colors by Leroux is a bit lighter. The lily pad lacquer is definitely a bit darker. Definitely different than each other and much more than I anticipated based on the bottles. So I wasn't going to swatch this initially with these two, but I think I'm going to pop in this third comparison, this Essie called Toggle to the Top. And the reason being is I am liking this lily pad lacquer, and when I did a swatch of this Essie, it had sort of a similar feel of being very, very dark, but the glitters adding that pop of the coloration, and I'm curious if they would give a similar enough feel on the nail, and if I might only need one or the other, because I definitely might lean more towards the holographic finish than the glitter finish, so I'm excited to see how those two compare. And again, I'm not expecting these to be dupes or anything, I just want to see how they compare to each other. So this definitely has that berry base and those flashing glitters, so definitely no holographic component in the Essie. It's definitely a beautiful vampy color, and I am liking the speckling look that that glitter gives it. It's funny, in the bottle every time I see it, I'm just not that drawn to it, but the swatches of it always impress me, which is curious. But there's the 2 coats of Essie. I really don't think it needs a third, so I was thinking if it compared enough to the lily pad, I could keep the lily pad instead, but the lily pad is definitely darker. So I think I'm going to keep the Essie and keep the Colors by Leroux. And for the time being, we'll be keeping the lily pad as well. It's different enough if I want a very deepened holographic. I don't think I have anything else like that. So we're keeping all 3. Off to a fabulous start to this Destash video. Let's go on to some flakies. We're going to do a comparison of these here. We've got 4 polishes, a lemming lacquer called Tilted, this one by Burial called Elle's Spell, an Illyrian called I See You, and a Quixotic called Donuts Go Nuts. And they are all a reddish polish, leaning in different variations of their depths, but they all have iridescent flakies in there, which leads me to doing the comparison. Definitely a light jelly red base with those flakies. This one is also a jelly base, slightly different coloration, a little bit more almost like reddish mauve, but you can see the difference there on camera. Next is going to be the Illyrian. This is much darker, almost a deepened berry as well. Interesting. And then the Quixotic. Whoa, okay, totally different. Now I knew that one would have different components in it as well because Donuts also has holographic, but I wanted to see how they compare, and so far they are all different. How interesting. So let's go ahead and see what a second coat does. So this is a second coat of Tilted by Lemming Lacquer, Elle's Spell by Burial. Sort of keeping its jelly base on this one, but I really like this color. Next is the Illyrian. Definitely more of a berry. And the Quixotic, which is more brown. Very interesting. So there is the second coat of this 4 comparison. Very different. That was not what I was expecting at all. So let's go ahead and see what a third coat does. This is going to be a third coat of Tilted. Still maintaining that red jelly base. Second coat of Elle's Spell by Burial. This is definitely a juicy jelly as well. Beautiful coloration in those fiery flakies. And the third coat of the Illyrian, I See You. And the third coat of the Quixotic. This one I think was the biggest surprise. So there you have it. 4 very different polishes. I don't think we have any dupes here at all. Donuts Go Nuts is definitely more of a brown leaning coloration, which is not what I was expecting, at least by comparison to these other ones. Then you've got the Illyrian, which is slightly burgundy, but it's actually more of a like deepened fuchsia. And then you've got Elle's Spell here by Burial, which is a little squishy jelly loaded with those flakies. And then you have Tilted by Lemming Lacquer, and that one is a redder jelly base, and it's got those flakies in there and some shimmer. I think of the 4, the closest are these 2 here, the Lemming Lacquer and the Burial. And while both are beautiful, I really am drawn to the kind of flakies that are in Elle's Spell, so I think I will be keeping that one. And I'm just really loving this deep berry tone of the Illyrian. I don't think I have one quite like that. So surprisingly, I think I will be destashing the Lemming Lacquer and the Quixotic. Up next, we've got one by A. England. This one is called Maxim. This one by Bohemian Polish called Cloak and Dagger. Then we've got one by Fair Maiden called Backyard Bonfire, and one by Cupcake Polish called Unrequited Love. And they're all this sort of deep wine burgundy base that has a lot of holographic and glitter components in different ones. The one from A. England is a straight up holographic. The Bohemian Polish has some holographic component in there. I'm not sure if that's, yeah, there you go. So it's got holographic components in there, but then it has this sort of a matte finish that it dries to. The Fair Maiden is a load of sort of this multichrome as well as some flakies in there. And the Cupcake Polish has different flakies in there as well as holographic, but they're all sort of in the same tone range of my reds, so I wanted to just see how they compared to each other. Alright, so first up is going to be the one from A. England. I'm always very impressed with their formula and their holographic polishes. Look at that. The holographic is not coming across on camera. It seems to be being very camera shy, but it's definitely a beautiful polish. Lovely, rich, sort of dusty wine burgundy. Next is the one by Bohemian Polish. Another beautiful formula. Very rich coloration. Next up, we're doing Backyard Bonfire from Fair Maiden. Another beautiful sort of dusty burgundy color, and this is the one that's got the multichrome shift to it with a bit of flaky, actually a lot of flaky in it. Beautiful color. And look at that, those are all just one coat. How impressive is that? That's very nice. Next up is going to be the Cupcake Polish. Another beautiful formula and very opaque as well, considering it's a first coat. And there you go. That's a good example of why I'm comparing them. They are all sort of the same feel on the nail. Beautiful, every single one, of course. The A. England is that beautiful holographic, and I think, there we go, now it's coming across on camera. And it is definitely linear. Then you've got the Bohemian Polish there. That one has some shimmer in there as well, and that's the one that has sort of a somewhat semi-matte dry finish. This one is the Fair Maiden. Beautiful glow that those flakies provide. And then this is the Cupcake Polish. Beautifully opaque and a lovely, rich, sort of deepened mulberry color. And it also has some flakies in there and some holographic. So let's go ahead and see how they compare to each other after a second coat. Definitely deepens up the color. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Now for the Bohemian Polish. I think the Bohemian Polish sort of has a somewhat metallic finish to it as well. Beautiful. Very rich coloration. And now for the Fair Maiden. Whoops, a bit too much on my brush. But look at that. That multichrome and those flakies are absolutely beautiful. Those flakies definitely provide a change between these other two over here. Definitely not seeing dupes so far, but like I said, I don't think they are going to be any dupes, but they're just somewhat similar in my collection. The second coat of the Cupcake Polish. Definitely deepening up this color here. Beautiful. So there you have it. I don't think any of them need a third coat. Look at that holographic on that A. England. Absolutely beautiful. All of them are very beautiful. I'm going to have to decide which ones I'm keeping and which ones I'm destashing, or if I've got another full deck of comparisons that I'm all keeping. Alright, so I did a window test to get the natural light that's still coming in the windows but not quite making it to us over here. And yep, I'm keeping them all. What really impressed me is, okay, so we've got the beautiful holographic linear hollow from the A. England, as I've mentioned before, but then also this cupcake polish over here also has linear hollow in the sun, and it's got those beautiful flakies, and they are definitely different from each other. I'm not sure if that's coming across very well on camera. I think on camera they're all looking a lot more similar than they are in person, but the cupcake polish is darker. Maxim over here is a bit on the lighter side, and because cupcake polish has a different kind of holographic, they're just two very different polishes. The one from Bohemian is just a lovely and very special shade. It's definitely more noticeable out in the sun how different it is from the others. And then Backyard Bonfire is just glowy and beautiful, and since it has that multichrome shift to it, it's just very different from the other four. So similar, but no dupes, and I couldn't weed one out. So I will be keeping them all again. And this is a good comparison of Maxim. This is on my dried and top coated nail swatch here. Just look at that. That's how each and every one of A. England's holographics are. I'm always stunned and impressed by how beautiful they are. And here's that satin finish of the Bohemian polish. We're going to sort of stick to the theme of these unusual shades of red. We've got another pack of 4 to compare. In this round, we've got Polished for Days, Light Up the Darkness, Femme Fatale, Labyrinth Gate, Fair Maidens, You Do It Too, and Poetry Cowgirls, Wonka. Now that one I already know is going to be very different from the other ones because of its glitter mix, but I just wanted to see how it compares, and of course then you'll get a live swatch of it to see how cool it looks. And I think I'm actually going to move the Fair Maiden over to be by these other ones that we've already done, just to get sort of a side-by-side mini comparison of those and see how it compares to the other ones we just swatched. So this first one is the Fair Maiden, You Do It Too. Okay, so very different definitely from the last batch that we swatched. This is a beautiful sort of multichrome glimmering base, and it's got some scattered holographic. Up next is the one from Femme Fatale. Again, very different from the other ones. This one has a slightly different multichrome base to it. I actually thought that these two would be more similar than they are. Oh, well, of course on camera they look identical. Let's see how the one from Polished for Days looks. Whoa! Well, that one's definitely different. Not a dupe for sure. Look at how dark that is. That one is beautiful. Look at that. That's like a rainbow on a bottle. I don't even know what all is in there, but wow. Then the next one is going to be Poetry Cowgirl. Ooh, very fun. Very neat. So we definitely don't have any dupes thus far. On camera, these two are the most similar, but they are different in person. So let's go ahead and see what a second coat does. Beautiful color. Sort of getting a little bit of that golden shimmer that I'm seeing in person. It's full on gold when I look at it at my angle. So let's go ahead and see what a second coat of the Femme Fatale looks like. So definitely from my angle, which is back here, they look very different from each other. On camera, they're definitely looking pretty similar. So whatever sort of multichrome finish that's reflecting straight up is very similar. They both do have the scattered holographic in there, and that beautiful sort of rusty red burgundy color. Very pretty. We'll see on those two what a third coat does, but let's go ahead and do a second coat of the Polished for Days. This is just definitely not a dupe for sure. Not even comparable at all. Look at that. And in person, it's even more stunning. It's loaded with these iridescent flakies and glitters, and I don't even know what all is in there, but I'm seeing all the colors of the rainbow at my angle. I've got greens and oranges popping up, and that multichrome in that base is just making it very, very impressive. I really wish it was coming across like that on camera. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and do a second coat of the Poetry Cowgirl. Nice deep rich red, sort of rust leaning color. So there's the latest four that we're comparing, and I definitely don't see any direct dupes. The Polished for Days is definitely staying with me. I can tell you that right off the bat, as is the Poetry Cowgirl. The glitter mixes in there are just super unique, and I'm not sure if they're coming across on camera very well, but they've got these like multichrome flakies in there, and you've got holographic glitter. It's really unique. So while the Polished for Days definitely doesn't need a third coat, we're going to go ahead and do a third coat of the rest. Just sort of balance those out with their opacity. So there you have it. Another four with definitely more differences than I expected them to have. Very neat shifts in all of them. I'm going to have to do a window comparison on these as well. So there's a little bit of what I'm seeing at the window. The one from Fair Maiden has a lot of the scattered holographic and the multichrome flash. The from Fatal here has that dusty coloration to it as well with the scattered hollow. And at the window, these two look so different from each other. So I'm really still not sure which ones I'm going to keep of those two. I am, of course, keeping these two, the Polished for Days and the Poetry Cowgirl. So they definitely aren't dupes, but I think I'm going to keep the Fair Maiden and Destash the Femme Fatale. A little bonus bottle shot of the Poetry Cowgirl. All of that unique goodies in there. So I got a little ahead of myself and forgot to press record before I did this next three, but we are doing Fair Maiden's Evil Stepsister, Elevation Polish Tupical, and Dawlish Polish Blood Like Liquid Fire. So far what we're seeing is that the one from Fair Maiden is a bit more of a raisiny color. The one from Elevation Polish is more of a berry tone, and so is the one from Dawlish Polish. Both of those are a little bit more on the berry side, and they've got different kinds of shimmer in there as well. So we're going to go ahead and see what a second coat looks like. And here's the one from Elevation, and the one from Dawlish Polish. Definitely interesting because the Dawlish Polish was sort of a last minute addition to these two. I was mainly comparing these two and threw the Dawlish Polish in there to do as a comparison because I had 3 swatch spaces left. And interestingly enough, it's more similar to the Elevation than the Fair Maiden is. So very interesting. I think we're going to need a third coat to do a final analysis. So here is the Fair Maiden. That third coat is definitely deepening this up nicely. Elevation Polish. And I am doing a bit thicker coats on these. Not necessarily on purpose, but just how it sort of worked out. And Dawlish Polish. This one is turning a little bit different than the one from Elevation after that third coat. Not sure how much difference there is on camera, but I am seeing a difference in person. So obviously the one from Fair Maiden is the darkest and has a very unique multi-chrome sort of shift in the shimmer, which is very camera shy. Then the one from Elevation Polish is sort of a deep berry tone, and the shimmers and flakies in there are flashing from sort of a golden tone, so definitely different from the Fair Maiden. And then the Dawlish Polish over here is almost like a ruby. It's got a darkened ruby berry base, And then all of those glitters in there are sort of flashing in deep jewel tones of like ruby and red. So definitely different from each other. So interestingly enough, I did another window comparison, and these two still are, at least tonally, the most similar. However, I actually think that those are the two that I'm going to keep. The one from Fair Maiden is a gorgeous polish, and in fact, I might have to do like a wear test on that one to actually see how it looks on the nail. But so far I'm just really liking the berry tone, the ruby tone of these two, and they are different enough in that this one by Dawlish Polish has that ruby glow. Meanwhile, the Golden Flakies I'm actually a lot fonder of on the actual swatch than I am in the bottle. And I think I would really enjoy wearing that as a mani. So I think we're going to be keeping these and possibly doing a destash of the Fair Maiden. And there you have it. That wraps up video number 2 for the red and burgundy comparisons and destash. LOL destash. I only have 4 down polishes after all of that. So not off to the most wonderful start with my destash. Even in video number 1, I didn't have that many, but the good thing is that means that I'm not running into a lot of duplicates. So in any case, hopefully you enjoyed. Maybe you saw some polishes that were similar to ones that you already had. Maybe you found some that you want, or polishes that you don't think you need anymore because they compare to another one. Hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know down below which burgundies and reds are your favorites, and make sure to keep an eye out for video number 3. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.